So the topic of today is industry, and I'll be your presenter. I'm still Kariuki Charles. Now we will look at an overview of this topic. So in this topic we shall be looking at an introduction where we shall be defining several terms. Then we look at the factors that influence the location of industries. We will look at classification of industries. Then we'll look at the significance of industrialization to Kenya. We'll look at the problems of industrialization. Then we'll embark on the problems that are associated with industrialization. Then we shall move to our case studies. And in this topic, we have 3 case studies. We shall look at cottage industries in India. Then we shall look at steel and iron industries in the Ruhr region of Germany. And then we shall look at the car and electronic industries in Japan. So what is an industry? An industry is an enterprise which makes it possible to produce goods and services for either for consumption or for sale. Simply put, that is what an industry is. So anything that is producing goods or services for personal consumption or for sale can be referred to as an industry. Now, industrialization, on the other hand, is the process through which a country moves from an agricultural economy and moves on to relying mainly on industries as the main economic activity for that country. So an industrialized country can be said to be a country that has moved from primary production, mainly agricultural production, and relies mainly on industrialization or industries as the main economic activity, as I have mentioned. So most of Africa is not industrialized, but we have a few countries like South Africa, Egypt, and Nigeria that can be said to be industrialized in Africa, because these are countries that rely more on industrial production rather than an agricultural economy. Next, we look at the factors that influence the location and development of industries. Now, there are several factors that will influence where an industry will be located. Now, we have raw materials. Now, either the industry is being located close to where the raw materials are, or it is being located to where the market is, depending on the nature of the raw material and the final product. So industries will be located near the raw material to reduce transportation costs, especially where you are dealing with heavy and bulky materials. Then you would rather establish that industry close there so that you reduce the cost of transportation of the raw material. Now, oil refineries will be located closer to the coast, and you can see the case of Kenya. We had the Changamwe oil refinery. It is no longer functional, but it is located closer to the coast, so that when crude oil comes through, let's say the Indian Ocean, then you can process it and transport it to where the market is. Then of course there are those then again that are located near the area of production, especially where you are dealing with perishable goods. These ones you locate them closer to the market. If you are producing a perishable good like let's say milk, you don't want to transport milk over a long distance, so you produce it closer to the market. Number 2 is power. Of course, the power will determine the kind of, where to locate an industry, because industries require a lot of power. And we shall be looking at, when we'll be coming to the Ruhr region of Germany, one of the main reasons why the industries were located there is because of availability of coal that was to produce the power. You can see the smelting of copper in Jinja, Uganda. Again, it's because the power is available. The other important factor to consider while establishing an industry is transport and communication. Now, you must, before establishing the industry, you must be aware of how you are going to be transporting your raw materials to the industry and also your finished goods to the market. So transport is crucial here. Now, communication is also crucial in that there are so many people, because this is a business. There are so many people that you must be in touch with, those that you employ, the suppliers of goods, the suppliers of all manner of things that you'll be needing in the industry. So you must be in communication with them, and therefore communication is also crucial. And you also need to be in contact with your customers. So communication lines are also important. Then the market for the goods. We have said again, this is a business. So before you know where to establish your industry, then you must know what is your market. Now you'll find that most industries will be located closer to where the market is, or closer to large urban areas, and we'll see this when you'll be looking at different industries. You'll find most of the industries located just next to the city in the industrial area, and the others in Ruiru and Thika, which are close to Nairobi, and because of course of the market. Now the other factor is labor. Industries are labor intensive, and therefore you will find most industries located where there is a good supply of labor, so that you reduce the cost of bringing in labor. Because if you are located in a remote area and you need to bring in people to work, then that means you must take care of the accommodation and the social amenities. So you need to locate industries where there is a large population, so that they provide the required labor. Then of course, countries that have skilled manpower, they tend to industrialize faster, because you need both the skilled labor and unskilled labor. So you'll find that countries, and that's what you are seeing Kenya trying to do. We are trying to move away from the theoretical part and moving towards education that is vocational by nature. Because if you remember, or if you have heard the story of the Nyayo pioneer, it's when the former president, the late Daniel Arap Moi, decided to build a Kenyan model of a car. One thing that failed the project terribly was the issue of labor. We did not have the skilled labor, and even when he brought in the machines to work, there was nobody to operate these machines, and they were operating at 10% efficiency, which is extremely dangerous and low. Now the other factor, of course, is water supply. There's a lot of water that is required. Most of the industries will use water as a raw material itself, and for instance, you are seeing coffee there and sugar for cleaning purposes as well, and also for cooling of machines. So you require a lot of water, and therefore most of the industries will tend to be located where we have a steady supply of water. The other factor, of course, is government policy. The government controls everything that happens on the land. So the government can either encourage or discourage establishment of industries. They can encourage by giving incentives to industries. You waive, probably by waiving tax, so that will encourage people to establish industries. But if the government decides to impose taxes on industries, then that will discourage again establishment of industries in a country. Now, why do the government give incentives to decentralize, to industries? One of the aim is to develop all parts. Like currently what we have in our country is where all the industries are, almost all. You'll find almost all industries in this country concentrated in the city. And when you'll be looking at a settlement, we are going to see that that is a very dangerous move, because if you decide to paralyze a country, you just need to attack the capital city and the country will go down on its knees. So to develop other parts, you have heard this country people saying they have been marginalized. So encourage people to establish industries elsewhere by waiving taxes or giving them incentives so that they can establish. If somebody wants to establish an industry, let's say in Mandera County, then make the conditions favorable for that person to establish the industry there, so that that industry there will create employment for people. It is going to bring in development in that area. The other one is, of course, create jobs in rural areas so that we avoid again everybody coming to the city to get a job. So when we establish industries elsewhere, then we create jobs in the rural areas, and then that way we, of course, we are going to be reducing the rural urban migration, which of course has its effect that we shall be looking at in another topic, that's settlement and population as well. Now the other one, of course, is to take industries where the labor is found. Most of the people in big cities, people are found in rural areas. All these others are people who have moved. So we have people in the rural areas, take the industries there, other than establish the industry in the city and then move the people to the city. Then of course it's to open up remote areas. If you look at a case of Magadi in Kenya, we looked at Magadi when we were looking at mining. Magadi would have been an extremely unoccupied area, and it is extremely remote. Were it not for that mining of soda ash in Magadi, that place would be remote. If it is still remote now, with even the industry there, then you can imagine how it would have been without that mining industry. Then to reduce congestion in the capital city, that is a big deal. Congestion of people, congestion of vehicles, everything. The city is completely congested because of everybody coming into the city to look for a job in an industry. So to reduce that, then we should decentralize the industries. And also for environmental reasons, when we will be looking at the last topic, that is environmental conservation and management, you will be seeing that some of the major cities of this world, like Beijing in China, a very serious environmental disaster awaits that city. You will see how smog affects that city because all the industries are there, and then of course the area is completely polluted. And you can even see Nairobi, the case of Nairobi River, the same problem. So we decentralize. It's like kind of decentralizing of environmental pollution, which of course I don't advocate for it, but at least we avoid too much pollution in one city. And then for security purposes, now we have primate city. The primate city risk is what I was talking about. This is a problem in most developing countries. We have a primate city, normally, which is the capital city, one big city, and in our case we have Nairobi. Now if this city is attacked and flattened, then we don't have a Kenya, because if that is where we have all the government offices. It's only now that we are trying to with the constitution of 2010 that we are trying to decentralize some of the services with the devolved governments. Otherwise everything is in the city. You hit the city, you hit the central bank, you hit almost all offices, and everything will be a disaster. So to avoid that issue of the primate city, then decentralization is necessary. The other factor is what we call industrial inertia. Industrial inertia is, and for my students, please, this is something that is normally tested. You should know this definition. Sometimes I find my students not getting what industrial inertia is. Industrial inertia is a situation where an industry remains in the same place despite the factors that made it established there. Despite them no longer existing, the industry remains. A good example is the case we shall be looking at, the Ruhr region of Germany, the steel and iron industries in the Ruhr region. One of the factors that made these industries to be established there was the availability of coal to provide for the energy. Then later, coal stopped being used, or the use of coal was reduced, and actually it completely stopped being used as a source of energy. But the industries did not move for reasons that we shall look. So that is what we call industrial inertia. You established an industry somewhere because there was availability of hydroelectric power. The hydroelectric power gets exhausted, but the industry remains there. That's what we are calling industrial inertia. Now, what causes an industry to remain there despite the fact that whatever made it established there is no longer there? One is the expense in building of a new factory. These are large investments. You have built houses for workers, the industry itself, offices. Now, the exhaustion of coal in this area, you weigh. This is a business. You are weighing what is easier, to bring in a new form of energy or to move the factory elsewhere, which will mean demolishing buildings and going again to build them elsewhere. So that is one thing. It becomes too expensive that it is easier to bring in a new form of energy than move the industry. The other one is availability of experienced workers. The workers, you may move with your workers, but how many of them are willing to move? The people have been there for a long time. These people have established a life. They have established, and human beings are social beings. They have established a life there. They have established, their children go to school there. They have been used to that place. So how many of your workers will be willing to move with you? So to avoid that, then the industry may better remain where it was. Then to avoid the problem of transportation and of course other basic infrastructural facilities where you are moving to, probably you'll be required to build a new railway line, which again you have to weigh the cost of going to build new infrastructure and the cost of remaining where you are and bringing in probably a new form of energy. So those are some of the things that will cause industries not to move, despite the fact that what established them there in the first place has moved. Now the other factor of course is capital. Just like any other business, capital is required to establish an industry. One reason why most of the third world countries, or these days they have a good name like developing countries. So one of the reasons why we are not industrialized is the inadequacy of capital. Industries require large amounts of capital. Let's say, imagine establishing a car manufacturing industry. You need a lot of capital. So if the capital lacks, then the industry may not be established. Good. That's what makes countries that are developed already to continue industrializing, because they have the capital to establish more and more of the industries. The other one is personal decisions. The person that in my community they say you tether your goat where you want. It is your industry. Where do you want to establish it? It is your affair. So wherever you want to establish your industry is where you are going to establish it. So it's also a personal decision for different reasons. One is of course for security. We are in a country that is politically volatile, and you have had people that they had established, let's say, agricultural industries in the Rift Valley. But you know what happened in 2007, 2008, the post-election violence. Most of their lands were banned, most of their facilities were banned, and therefore you'll find for that reason, somebody would wish to establish their industry in an area where they know such areas are not affected by political upheavals. The other thing is, of course, to get maximum benefits. It's your decision. You are establishing this industry to make money. So the fact that the government may be giving you incentives to go and establish your industry in a rural area, you'll have to do your cost benefit analysis. You weigh the incentives that you'll be getting against what profit you'll be getting there. So that will lead you to establishing your industry where you'll be getting maximum profits. Then of course most people will tend to establish their industries in their local homes, so that they give jobs to their local people, so that when you feel that now you have become more popular, you have employed many people, then you go and ask them to be their MCA. They will definitely elect you because you have employed them and you have been feeding their families. The other factor is the cost of land. You'll find that most of the industries being established currently are establishing in far areas from Nairobi. Nairobi has become too expensive to afford, and therefore you'll find people moving out to Thika and to Ruiru, where it is a little bit cheaper as compared to Nairobi. Then We look at classification of industries. We look at different ways in which we can categorize industries. One way in which we can classify industries is according to the raw materials that are used, the products, and the level of production. So that is one categorization. So that one gives us primary, secondary, and tertiary industries. Now the primary industries, we also call them the processing industries. These are industries that simply exploit natural resources. They will not process, because we are talking still about the level of production. So here most of the products will not be processed, and even when they are processed, it will just be partially. So here we are talking about industries like fishing. You are just taking your fish, fishing from the lake, let's say Lake Victoria, and then selling your product. The product will go to be processed elsewhere. The best you can do about this is what we are calling here partial processing, is take this fish and smoke it so that it will not go bad. So you have partially processed this fish, and then of course you can sell it. Forestry, the same case. You are just producing probably cut down trees. You can sell them as logs, partially processed, by removing the branches, by cutting logs and selling. Or you can simply partially convert this into timber and then sell. The final product probably is a table somewhere in the city or a house. So you are just partially producing. So this one include abattoirs. Abattoirs are what do you call them? Slaughterhouses. Then sawmills. Sawmills will take the lumbering product like the logs and process them partially to become timber. Milk dairies. The milk dairies will simply buy milk, probably put it in refrigerators and then sell. Then somebody in a secondary industry will go and make cheese from that milk. So that is what secondary or manufacturing industries are. They will make a final product from the product that they got from the primary industry. So using sugar, which is using the sugar that was made in the primary, no, that is even a little bit processing, but using sugar, then you can make sweets. That's a final product. There's nothing else that product will requires. You are taking tobacco that was grown in a primary kind of production and using that tobacco to make a cigarette, which is a final product. So that becomes a manufacturing or a secondary industry. Now, on the other hand is what we call the tertiary industries. These are service industries. They do not offer any products, but they give services like transport, banking, trade, communication, name them. This insurance. These are industries that offer services, but they do not give a product per se. The other classification is the state of the finished goods. Now, using this classification, we can classify industries as heavy industries and light industries. As the name suggests, the heavy industries will manufacture heavy and bulky products. Here we are talking about ships, we are talking about vehicles, building, heavy product. They also use heavy raw materials. We are talking about steel or iron, heavy materials used to produce heavy products. Then it involves heavy investment. You can imagine an industry like shipbuilding that requires heavy investment. The amount of steel that you require, the amount of iron, the amount of everything to produce this is a heavy investment. Then the production, of course, will be in large scale. So those are some of the characteristics of heavy industries. Now, on the other hand is the light industries. This one will produce in small volumes. The products that they are producing are also light in weight, and of course the raw materials are also light. Here we are talking about cosmetics, marashi na mambo mengine, plastics, textiles, clothes, and such like. You are making light materials, cigarettes, small electronics like phones. These are light industries, right? So moving on, let us look at the distribution of industries in Kenya. Before we move on, it is important to note that our country is mainly involved in primary production. We are not an industrialized country. We mentioned the industrialized countries in Africa. So mainly the industries that you'll find in this country are agricultural industries. Now, agricultural industries can be divided into agricultural food processing industries. These are industries that will use agricultural products or agricultural raw materials to produce food or something that is edible. Look at tea, for instance. Tea is a product. Tea is an agricultural product. It grows on land. So then again we produce tea, the tea that we use in making of tea. How do you call this? Yes, that tea we are talking about, the beverage. It's edible. Sugar comes from sugarcane, which is again an agricultural product. You look at coffee factories, all these are agricultural products. Brewing, and we have several of them in Kenya. We have very many tea factories in Kenya. We have sugar mainly in the sugar belt of western Kenya and Nyanza, parts of Nyanza. We have coffee mainly in central Kenya. Then we have fruit canning. We have Del Monte here. We have maize milling, in very many of them in many parts of our country. We have also brewing industries. We have the local ones, and we also have the major East African breweries, and then Keroche breweries in Naivasha. Then we have the agricultural non-food processing. These ones utilize agricultural raw materials, but whatever they produce is not food. It's not edible. For instance, cotton ginneries will make use of cotton, which is an agricultural raw material, but whatever is produced as cotton is not something edible. Sisal, then most of these are dead, but we are still trying. The butter shoe company, we have it in Limuru. I don't know whether it is still produces or it imports. We have cigarette making. We have BAT, and that's the main one in Kenya. The Pan-African paper mills in Webuye, dead and buried. Then we have non-agricultural manufacturing, those that do not use agricultural products. We have cement factories, we have Bamburi, we have the river, among others. We have oil refining. We had one in Changamwe, Mombasa, dead and buried. Steel rolling mills, we have several of them in Ruiru, among other places. We have the Central Glass Company. We have clay products. We have a clay works next to Kenyatta University. We have vehicle assembly in Mombasa, in Nairobi, and Thika. Then we have the pharmaceutical industries. All these utilize non-agricultural products or raw materials. GlaxoSmith is an example of the pharmaceutical industries. Then most importantly, we have cottage industries. Now, cottage industries, we shall still be looking at this as a case study. We'll look at India and their cottage industries. Now, cottage industries are small industries that get involved in making of products, particularly in homes, using simple tools to produce simple products at home or in small urban areas. Now we move on to the characteristics of cottage industries. One is that they normally utilize locally available raw materials. We are talking about making pots, for instance. You are just taking clay in the area and then making carpentry. It's just buying timber from the local area and making some products. So they will utilize locally available. You will not find most of them importing raw materials. They are just locally available materials. Two is that the capital invested is small. Normally, they are small family homes, making a kiondo, making some pots, so they do not require a lot of capital. The other one is that most of the products are just sold locally, even if sometimes you may find the products being sold elsewhere and even exported, but mainly the products that are being produced. Go to Gikomba, go to these people along on your way to Jogoo Road. Those people that make jikos using mabati, those jikos are not for export. They are just sold to the people of Nairobi locally. Then the skills that are required, normally you don't go to school to learn how to make a jiko. Traditionally, these people learned the skills informally from either a family member. Somebody taught you to make a kiondo, and then you pass the same skills to another family member. So the skills are acquired informally. There's the use of hands and simple tools. Very simple tools. It's a small business. We have said the capital invested is small, so it is not the capital is not enough to import and bring in sophisticated tools. So you use your hands and simple tools where required. Then the produce or the produced items that are, or they produce items that are in demand in the neighborhood. You are making what people require in your area, so that you, again, because it's just your market is the local market, so you are just making what the people in your area may require. Then it is labor intensive for one reason, because you have said you are using either hands or simple tools. We do not have machines. Machines reduce the need for labor. So when you don't have machines, then the labor is intensive. Then few items are made, of course, because the market is limited, the tools are simple, and the investment is also small. So again, the products are also limited. So you look at some of the examples of cottage industries in Kenya. The main cottage industries in Kenya are Jua Kali industries. The Jua Kali industries here are referring to all informal manner of industries. They range from shoe repairers to tailors to people who mend tires, those people who repair bicycles. All these are Jua Kali industries. Mainly you'll find them in urban areas. You may find them even where they're in a rural area. You'll find them in the small settlement, Kasenta somewhere. That is where you'll find these people. So all these barbers, mechanics, name them, tailors, all these are Jua Kali industries. Then the other cottage industry is pottery. Pottery in Kenya is mainly done in eastern, central, and the coasts. The products they produce are here. It's pottery, making pots. So you can make pots using clay. You can see the first photo there, up there. Those are clay pots. Down there you have flower vases. They could be made of fiberglass, or these days they are made of, most are made of fiberglass, but you can see the ones there again made of clay. So these are some of the products. Then we have wood and stone carvings. This one is practiced in Ukambani area, Kitui, Machakos. You'll find them making beautiful carvings for tourists. Then we have the Kisis. The Kisis also do using some rock known as the Kisii soapstone, which is a soft rock that is easily carved. So I should think it is a sedimentary rock. So we can see some of the products there. Wood carvings. You can see beautiful animals. The big five. No, I think it's only one of the big five. You can see an elephant there. You can see carvings of people. So this, the first photo at the top, are wood carvings. At the bottom there you can see the Kisii soapstone. Very beautiful carvings from that. That is art. Then we have weaving as another cottage industry. We have making of kiondos. This was common in the Kikuyu community. The Kamba also had the chondo. So again, we have many people making mats at the coast, and also are using papyrus reeds and munazi or coconut leaves. So you can see kiondo there at the top. You can see mats down there, although the kiondo the patent for the Kiondo was stolen from us, but traditionally it was a Kikuyu thing and Kamba thing. Then you have those people that use scrap metals and reprocess them into final products. You can see that photo there. That's man there making a jiko. On the far right, you can see pans. You can see boxes on your left. You can see buckets. So these people use scrap metals to reprocess them and make all manner of products. So these are some of the cottage industries. Now, these industries are very important, and therefore the government needs to support these industries. Now, how can the government ensure that these industries are flourishing? One is that the Ministry of Trade and Industry, I don't know what it is called. I know there's still a Ministry of Trade. I don't know whether it's still attached together with the industry, but it has set up a department to promote this industry. I think we have the KIE. I don't know whether it is still operational, or the Kenya Industrial Estate. Then yeah, it's there, the Kenya Industrial Estate, providing loans to Jua Kali industry for the purchase of materials. I don't know whether they still do that. Then KIE has put up permanent structures. The government is trying to build structures so that the artisans, these people that Jua Kali artisans can work under at least conducive conditions. Then local authorities have also said these days they are not local authorities, and it's our job to update geographical knowledge. They are local governments, not local governments, but county governments. So the county governments, you'll find Jua Kali artisans, even those offering services like Boda Boda, those are still cottage industries. You'll find the county governments trying to put up structures so that they are working in conducive conditions. Then the Jua Kali artisans have also been encouraged to operate in cooperatives, and we looked at that when we were looking at fishing. Most of the people are being organized in cooperatives so that the cooperatives can fund you. They can also market your products, and then you can maximize on the profits. So next we can look at the importance of the Jua Kali sector. Why should be the government interested in investing in this sector? It is because the Jua Kali sector is very important. So one, of course, it has created employment opportunities. You'll find most of the people in this country are informally employed by the Jua Kali sector. Majority are in this sector. The other one is that it utilizes materials that would otherwise have been waste. The scrap metals that we are talking about, this would have been waste and they would just be a problem to our environment. But instead of that, you have seen people making good products from them. You have seen some toys for children made from bottle tops, beautiful ones. Instead of the bottle tops littering the compound and towns, then you can utilize them to make something that is creative and more important. Then when they are exported, of course, they will earn the country foreign exchange. The artifacts like the curios we are talking about, the carvings, those ones can be exported and they will earn the country foreign exchange. Then we produce cheaper goods that are more better than those that are produced in the formal industries, like buckets, the metallic buckets, these jikos. Consider a jiko that is made in somewhere in industrial area in a Jua Kali sector, and another jiko that is produced in a formal industry like the jikokoa. Jikokoa will go for 5,000. The other one will go for not more than 300. So you can see the difference. Then it will also save the country the foreign exchange that would have been used in bringing in the imports. So that creates at least a balance of the payment where we do not rely a lot on importation, because that is what exhausts our foreign exchange reserves. So what is the significance of industrialization to Kenya? What benefits does Kenya get from industrialization? Kenya earns foreign exchange. Whatever we produce and export, like tea, the agriculture sector was the main I mean, export earning sector in this country before it was overtaken by tourism. But either way, we still get a substantial amount of foreign exchange from export of tea, coffee, among other products that we make in this country. Industries employ people. Many people are employed either formally or informally. If you go and see the number of people moving to industrial area every morning, all these are people employed by industries, and that of course raises their standards of living. Development of transport and communication everywhere where we have I've given a classical example of Magadi. Magadi is a remote area. Magadi is a hardship area, but because of the mining industry that is there making salt, then Magadi has developed into an urban area, a town. It has a tarmac road all the way from Nairobi through Rongai Kiserian all the way to that place. Communication has been improved. Social, I mean, in fact, it has even a railway line that branches from the Nairobi railway line all the way there. So these are amenities that have been availed because of that industry, and of course they open up those remote areas. Then agricultural based industries have led to increased agricultural production, like people will continue planting tea because the tea has an industry that is processing it and then making money, so we continue improving on agriculture, like you can see currently, because now there's market for the Hass avocados, so most of the people now are getting into that business of growing something that they never used to do. Then diversification of the economy. Economies that have thrived on industrialization are stronger than those industries that rely simply on agriculture or mining. These industries of mining and agriculture are vulnerable. Mining is most of the minerals are exhaustible. When we come to agriculture, it is badly affected, and with the issue of climate change and climate variability, then these are industries that will be hard hit. So to avoid that, then we diversify to something else like industrialization. Then industrial exports help in maintaining a balance of trade. That's, I think I've mentioned that before. You balance whatever you are importing and whatever you're exporting, so that you are not importing too much than you're exporting. That creates an imbalance of trade, and it will result in a deficiency of foreign currency. The other one is industrial exports create a trading cooperation. It fosters good relationship with your trading partners. When you are trading with people, then you maintain a good rapport with them. Then of course it will encourage utilization of resources which would otherwise be idle. We have talked about that, about the cottage industry. Again, you look at lumbering, you have too many trees, you are not engaging in lumbering, then the products will stay idle. So we utilize the, probably if you are producing electricity in excess, we need to utilize it that way. Then promote development of urban centers. We have given a classical case of Magadi. Thika is also another industrial city. It is almost becoming a city, and it just developed because of industries. Now we look at problems of industrialization. One is inadequate capital for industrial establishment. We are a developing country, and therefore having capital becomes a problem. Now those others that are below, there are some possible solutions. One of the possible solutions is the government to give incentives to investors. We try to make a conducive environment for investors to establish industries, so that even if we are not able to establish, then other investors can establish the industries. Then give long-term loans, and loans that are also affordable and conducive. Make our loans affordable for people to establish industries and to borrow and establish industries. That will solve the problem of capital. Then we have the problem of raw materials. Mainly we have agricultural products in this country, and which are affected mainly by weather and climate. So to do that, then we can supplement with the imported raw materials. We also have a problem of inadequate market for industrial goods. For one reason is that the purchasing power, like currently we are in a hard place. Not many people can afford many things. So because of that, then we have a problem with the market. But instead, in a bid to solve this, then probably we can explore other markets, regional markets within the East African community. That's why trading blocks are important. You are expanding your market. Then we can also lower tax on raw materials so that we make our products affordable and competitive in the market. The other problem is insufficient skilled labor. Mainly the issue of unskilled labor, we have enough of that. We have strong-bodied Kenyans who can work under any conditions. We are hardy people. But when it comes to skilled labor, we killed most of our vocational colleges. It's only now that the governments are trying to bring up the vocational colleges again. So we do not have the skilled labor. We do not have people. We are not producing enough of the skilled labor. And that's why we have been relying a lot on expatriates. And when you use expatriates are people from elsewhere importing labor. Now when we import labor, then we do not get maximum benefits, because most of these expatriates repatriate all the profits back to their countries. And you have seen most of the industries in this country being owned, and the skilled labor there being mainly Indians. Now the Chinese have also come in. Now the government needs, of course, to invest in technical education. I think we are trying that, although I'm not comfortable with how we are doing it, because again we are trying to kill universities, which again might bring up other issues. Then offer competitive remuneration to people, so that it's not just the white collar jobs that should be paying. When people are mechanics, then they are also serving, and therefore they should also be getting good pay, so that it will encourage more people to do that. Then the other one is, of course, competition with imported goods. We are now, because of the issue of globalization has made what we call a global village. The world is now a global village where you get products from anywhere. We have also made protocols and understanding, like the COMESA region, which is a trading bloc, the East African community. Most of these are supposed to remove trade barriers. So you are getting goods from elsewhere, and which becomes, our goods become very difficult to compete in this market. And with the importation, you saw the other day a classical example of goods, the Chinese, what do we call this? The China Center in the Unicity. Now when you saw that, you saw a public outcry, because these people are bringing in very cheap products, and therefore the products that we make here cannot compete at all with these products. Now, as one of the issue is imposing duty on imports, it can be a solution, but again it's a hard balance. You saw during our elections, and we are trying to balance between reviving our industries and banning Mutumba. It will affect people. There are many people, cottage industries, relying on, again, the import. So it is a hard balance. Improving the quality of the locally manufactured goods, I think that's a good solution, so that they can compete with the imported goods. And most importantly, if we eliminate corruption, then we solve all the problems, because corruption is what kills this country. Corruption makes us people to import and avoid duty. So when they bring in imported goods duty free, they become extremely cheap, and therefore our products cannot compete. The other one is high cost of energy. This is a real thorn in the flesh. high cost of energy. This country has some of the highest costs of electricity and I mean fuel. It's very expensive, so we need to know how to deal with that so that we can make production cheaper. Now we have problems associated with industrialization. We differentiate this with what we have discussed earlier. These are problems that come with industrialization. Now one of them is environmental degradation. Industries release a lot of effluent. Industries release a lot of greenhouse gases, so they cause environmental degradation. Now the only way of dealing with this is enacting laws, and I think in my research I've found that this country has some of the best environmental laws. We have the main environmental law in this country that is called EMCA, or the Environmental Management and Coordination Act of 1999. Of course it has been over time we have several of some editing of that law, but the law is exclusive. The law addresses. Now this law established NEMA, or the National Environment Management Authority. It is responsible for ensuring that we comply with this law. The only problem is compliance in this country. NEMA has come up with regulations on water pollution, regulations on noise, regulations on toxic products. But how well do we implement it? And because NEMA does not have prosecutorial powers, and we have a police force in this country that I will not discuss in details, then the problem comes in. But we have the law. The law is there. The only thing that we have to do is ensure that the law is followed to the letter. The other problem is neglecting of agriculture. Every other able-bodied man who completes Form 4 and gets an ID card, they will move to Nairobi to be employed somewhere in an industrial area. And that causes rural-urban migration, and villages where we are supposed to be producing food are left with children and old people who are not powerful enough to do agriculture. And that is what we are seeing with all these problems of other than the climate. This is also contributing to the problems that we are currently having. The other thing that can be associated with industrialization is unemployment due to technological. The more industrialized countries become, the more we employ technology, and that technology is causing unemployment. I don't support. We cannot move backwards. We have to keep moving ahead. So technological innovations are welcome, but because of our problems, you have seen people trying to refuse technology, and the classical example is when the tea picking machines were brought to Kericho. You saw how they faced resistance. They are still facing, and several were banned because of that. But we have to contend with this. If you go to YouTube and watch how vehicles are made, robots are being used, and of course you don't pay the robot, it just needs energy, and it also makes production more efficient. So we need to embrace that. Then displacement of people. When you want to establish industries, of course, sometimes you may require to displace people. Then causes rural to urban migration. I think we have discussed that, and of course we shall look at later when we'll be looking at settlements. Of course, rural urban migration comes with several other problems. Now we will then move on to our case studies, and in our case study we shall start with cottage industries in India. We have that map there showing where India is. India is a big subcontinent bordered by Pakistan and China on the other side. and then of course the Indian Ocean, their flag is there, and a small island there, Sri Lanka. So that is India basically. You can see some big cities in India. The major cities, we have Calcutta, we have Delhi, Mumbai, we have Bangalore. I don't know how, if that is how you read it. So to begin with the discussion on the cottage industries in India, we first look at the major areas where these industries are found. We said, of course, mainly they are found in urban areas. So some of the areas you can see them there: Mumbai, Jabalpur, Nagpur, Madras, Calcutta, and the rest. I urge the students to grasp just about 2 or 3 of them. We normally don't ask for many. Now the industries here, mainly we have weaving industries, making of clothes, brass, copper, silver, and silverware, jewelry, carpets, and the rest. So those are some of the industries, cottage industries in India. Now let us compare Kenya and India. One is that, now the comparison, kindly this is to our students. Now when you are making a comparison, you are comparing 2 countries, so do not forget to mention what is there in Kenya and what is there in India. Now one is that in India they are mainly rural based, while in Kenya they are mainly in both rural and urban based. So that's one difference. In Kenya we normally have in both the rural and urban, but in India the cottage industries are mainly rural. 2 is that the Indian craftsmen are highly skilled. In Kenya we said we don't have highly skilled people, especially in the cottage industries. Now mainly in India the labor is mainly provided by individuals or members of the family. Now normally Indians have close ties, family ties, which is not it's not too common in Kenya. So in Kenya the business is either individual or you make a group of people, but we hardly do business as families in Kenya, except one community, that is the Somali community. Now industries in India are mainly owned by families. In Kenya they are individual. In Kenya it is every man for himself and God for us all. That's a motto in this country. So families don't rely on each other in this country. Now in India the middlemen will supply raw materials. For our case, you obtain in your own way where you want to get your raw materials, but in India we have middlemen that bring in the raw materials. Now from there we can look at the factors that favor development of the cottage industry in India. Why is the cottage industry in India more developed as compared to our country? One is that the industries require little capital to establish, just like us. So many of them are developed because of that. Then the Indians are skilled weavers, and they're also very good in making ornaments, because they have a long history of that use and the making of ornaments, so they are highly skilled. Then there is a high demand. India should be the second largest in terms of population after China. It has 1 billion people, so you expect that to be the market to be there. Then when the population is high, then the labor is also there, so very good supply of labor. Then the industries do not require big space, just small areas. Then supply of locally available raw materials, they are there, so they make it possible for the industry to develop. Then there is availability of hydroelectric power, being in an area that is supplied with a lot of rivers and experiences high rainfall, being a tropical climate, monsoon, then they get a lot of they have a lot of electricity that is necessary for establishment of industries. Then you have the urge of the people to earn an income. The Indian community has a caste system. I shouldn't think you have heard about the caste system, which is a very rigid form of system where you are born into a class. It's a classism thing. So those who are born in the lower class, then they put a lot of effort to earn an income and try to deliver them from that caste. Then availability of simple and affordable tools. Again, that favors the development of the cottage industry. So what is the significance of the cottage industry in India? Just like in Kenya, there will be the same points. Creation of employment. Many people are employed by this sector. Utilization of locally available raw materials. Then the industry also wants the country foreign exchange, especially from export. Note that is another point, the one for the earning of foreign exchange. It's not related to utilization of locally available materials. I think it's a typographical problem. Then we have declined rural urban migration, because we have said most of these industries are located in the rural areas, so they reduce rural urban migration. Then manufacture of cheap products, we said that it's the same case in Kenya. Problems faced by the industry: difficulty in obtaining raw materials at affordable prices, where we have middlemen, and we have said the middlemen supply the raw materials. The middlemen must also make profit, so that makes it expensive. Then the shortage of capital, again we have said we have the case system and the people involved in this business. Capital is a problem. Competition from other industries. We have major industries in this country, and therefore they compete with these ones. Then difficulties in making the products. I don't know why it would be difficult in making products. Then we have exploitation by middlemen. I think I've mentioned that. The middlemen, where there are middlemen, there will always be problem, because these people want to get the products from you cheaply and make a big profit. Just like the case where we are looking at fishing in Lake Victoria. People will buy fish cheaply from the people who do the fishing, and then of course just refrigerate and transport to Nairobi and make a killing. Now next we shall look at the next case study, that is the iron and steel industries in the Ruhr region of Germany. We have Germany there. You can see it from the map at the middle there. You can see the flag of Germany. Germany is located in the western part of Europe. You can see it there. It's always good to get a background of the country before you study. I leave it upon the student to do that. So the factors that have made this a success in the Ruhr region: one was the availability of raw materials. Coal was available. This is one of the things that made these industries established here. Coal provided the energy. Then we had iron, the iron ore and the limestone as raw materials for this industry, so they were available. Then we have cheap water transport. Water transport is the cheapest, so these rivers and the canals here provided a cheap form of transport to transport the raw materials and also the final product to the market. Then we have a market that is affluent and dense. We have some of the richest countries in central and western of Europe. You can look at the neighbors there. All these are affluent countries that will provide the market for these goods. Then the source of energy: coal Coal was used previously as a main source of energy because coal produces a lot of energy, especially where you are smelting iron. Then this is the right form. Then we also had oil, we had hydroelectric power, nuclear power. So all these provided the energy that is required for the industry. Availability of capital, Germany being a first world country, then the capital was not a problem to establish these industries. Then the central location in Europe, it makes it easier to transport the products to the market. It also makes the area accessible. So that again favored establishment. So what is the significance of this industry? We have improvement of transport networks. Of course, anywhere we have industries, then network will develop. The growth and expansion of towns. These are some of the towns that have grown tremendously from this industry. Employment, of course, that will improve the people's living standards. Promotion of agriculture. The people who are working, the huge population that will move into this industrial area need to be fed. So that again favors agricultural production. Then provision of social amenities. Again, the people who are coming here need schools, they need hospitals, and therefore that they are being there attract the social amenities. Some of the problems is environmental pollution. I think I've shown in that photo there. You can see a lot of smoke being emitted from those industries, and especially because this industry started by using coal. Coal is extremely dirty. Coal, the burning of coal is an organic fuel. It's a fossil fuel. So when you burn coal, you release a lot of carbon dioxide or carbon dioxide, whatever you call it. Then congestion and overcrowding in the which of course puts a strain on housing and also social amenities because of the number of people who will move in to look for jobs. Then the other problem that came up was the depletion of coal mines. Coal is not renewable, so the exploitation of coal made it depleted or exhausted. Again, the deepening of the mines continue making it expensive. And remember, it was the industry was established there because of the cheap coal. So when it becomes expensive, then it becomes unreliable. Now, the last of our case studies is the car and electronic industries in Japan. The flag of Japan is there, you can see it. Below there you can see Japan. Japan is made of more than 700 islands. It borders it's an island. Most of these are islands. We have major ones, we have small ones. We looked at Japan again when we were looking at fishing. It has come again, so we look at some of the islands, the major islands, which include Hokkaido, Honshu, among others. We shall look at them later. Now, Japan has a long history. Now, one is that it is located in the east end of the Asiatic continent. We have seen its location. The capital is Tokyo. The dialing code is +81. These are just for basic, so that just an introduction, so that I advise my student to want to know. So it's good I just give a background of this. It has a population of about 125.8 million people by 2020. That's a high population. The current prime minister is Fumio Kishida, after the previous one had resigned and then he was assassinated thereafter. They use the Japanese yen, which they intentionally devalued so that they make it possible, or they make the exports cheap, and that has helped them a lot. Now, Japan has had a long history. Now, it is one of the most developed countries currently. You can see the GDP is about $5 trillion by 2019. Now, Japan made a turnaround after the Second World War. They suffered the greatest consequences of the Second World War. because the US saw that Japan would fight in the Second World War forever. So they decided to teach them a lesson. However, they warned them before that if they did not withdraw from the war, they would regret. But because the Japanese people have the fighting spirit, and they had the fighting spirit, and they would fight to the last man, so they denied, or they defied that order from the US. And then the US decided to drop two bombs. One was dropped in Hiroshima. It was nicknamed Little Boy, which killed 70,000 people on the spot. 3 days later, another one was dropped in Nagasaki, nicknamed Fat Man. It killed almost the same number of people. Now, after that, Japan withdrew from the war, the Second World War, unconditionally. And after that, Japan has never involved itself in any other war. It made a turnaround and decided to develop, and it is now one of the most developed countries of this world. Now, the major islands, we have major islands, and we have small islands that make up this Japan. We have said there are more than 700, but the major ones, we have Hokkaido, Honshu, Kyushu, Shikoku, Chisima. We have smaller ones like Okinawa. Okinawa has a long history. If you want to read, you can read the Battle of Okinawa. It was one of the most affected areas during the Second World War and the invasion of the US on that small island known as Okinawa. So that gives us a good background to this country. Now, 80% of the area is rugged. Most of these are islands made up volcanic islands, so they are rugged, and that discourages agriculture. So as we looked at when we looked at fishing, we said that is also something that has favored fishing, because agriculture is not an option. So they have relied on fishing to provide food and also for industrialization. Now, the major manufacturing industries, they do all manner of manufacturing: chemical, textile, iron and steel, automobile, electronics. So we'll not look at the iron and the chemical and the others, but we shall concentrate on automobile and electronics. Now, Japan has the other factor that favors, of course, is the advanced technology. Most of this, if you may just go to YouTube and check how vehicles are made, they make use of robots. Now, these robots, we said, are not paid, and they also make work very efficient. So that has increased efficiency. It also improves quality, and it also lowers the production costs, and that is what makes the products that come from Japan very competitive in the world market. Now, the cars and all the electronics that are made from Japan, if you compare the cars that come from Japan and elsewhere, if you look at our country, Kenya, you'll find that almost everybody is driving a car from Japan except a few. And it is for a reason. The cars from Japan are cheap. And yes. Then the rugged mountainous landscape, I think we have mentioned that. Then Japan produces cars which are also fuel efficient. So other than the cars being cheap, they are also very fuel efficient. If you compare the Toyota vehicles in this country and something from US like Ford, or a machine from Germany like Volkswagen, then those people that know the consumption of cars will tell you that the Japanese cars consume little as compared to these other countries. I mean, from these other models from other countries. Then they have a ready market. We have said the population in Japan is 125 million, bordered by Russia, bordered by China and India. Almost the entire world population, or half of the world population, sits there. So the market is there for the products. Availability of capital. They get capital from other industries like shipbuilding, machinery, textile. We have said they are involved in chemical industries, fishing, tourism. All these are industries which contribute again to the other industries. So that again has favored development. Then availability of skilled and dedicated and hardworking manpower. The people of Japan work. These are people who sleep for almost less than 3 hours. The people are skilled and they're also dedicated in serving their country and disciplined. So they serve their country with dedication. Then it's also located in a strategic position. So it's accessible. It's an island. It's accessible from the China Sea, I think, from all this other side. Is it the Pacific? So the country is accessible from all directions. Then a lot of water, many lakes, the Pacific Ocean, many rivers because of glaciation or glacial activity. So many lakes, rivers, all these provide the water that is required for cooling and also for other purposes in the industries. So the main car manufacturing zones, we have the Tokyo-Yokohama region. It includes those areas, Tokyo, Yokohama itself, Chiba, and also Hitachi. We go over this faster. Osaka, Kobe. Again, you can look at those regions from your maps. Then we have the Nagoya industrial zone, including all those regions. The main car models you can see, and you will tell that almost all the cars we are driving here come from this country. So that's a Toyota, that's Honda. We have Suzuki, Daihatsu, Isuzu, and Nissan, also from this country. We have Datsun. I think Datsun was bought or absorbed into Nissan, so I don't think Datsun continues producing vehicles. We have Mitsubishi. We have Subaru. It's a common vehicle in this country by young people, and also there's even a song about Subaru Yamambaro. It's used by some people that we know. And Mazda. So you can see basically almost all the vehicles that we use in this country come from Japan. They are very favorable because they are fuel efficient and they are also cheap as compared to other vehicles like Volkswagens, and which are German vehicles. The electronic industries, in a brief, they make a lot of refrigerators. Hitachi, Panasonic are from there. Sharp, very many cookers. Sewing machines, we have one called Juki, and Toyota also makes sewing machines, and Koyo. Computers, we have one of the best computers, and called Toshiba, comes from Japan. We have Seiko Epson, it's a printer from Japan. We have racks. We have TVs. Sony is one of the oldest and the best TVs we have from Japan. Video and tape recorders, we have Sony, we have Panasonic. We have calculators, all the calculators that our students use, Casio, they come from Japan again. Telecommunication devices, these are phones. We have Sony Xperia from Japan again. So these are some of the electronics that come from radios and all manner of electronics that come from Japan. So what's the significance of the industry? These are the same for us and the country in foreign exchange, of course, from the export. Employment, which of course improves people's living standard. That point should always be attached. Then improvement of roads and railway lines. I think this is one country which has some of the most sophisticated and improved, I mean the best of the road systems in the world. Then the need for skilled labor has necessitated establishment of colleges to train personnel. So more colleges and vocational institutions have been established so that they trained people. So thank you for your time in that lesson. We shall be embarking on the other lessons. The only thing that you don't forget to do is to subscribe to my page, like, and also share. Thank you for your attention. See you in the next lesson. Bye.